College football nerds here to do a quick review of what we saw from Jalen Hurts for Oklahoma in his opener for them. We've done a lot of discussion on Jalen, both in our couple of years of covering him in SEC country, back and forth on RJ Young's channel and on ours, talking about what Oklahoma fans can expect from him. We saw a lot of what we thought you could expect. We're going to talk about it now. Obviously got my co-host Josh getting nerdy with us on this one. Please remember, like and subscribe. It helps this channel out a whole lot. You can find us on Twitter, talking heat to RJ Young all the time. We don't always agree with that guy just because we're friends with him. All right, Josh, what we saw from Jalen is what we expected, and that was a system that was going to create opportunities for him to put up monster numbers. He put up monster numbers at Alabama when he faced mediocre offenses or defenses, and it was that times a million in this game. But one of the things that we saw that was different from the Kyler Murray era was a big power run component for the quarterback in this one. We also saw him hitting some receivers on all parts of the field and not just to his strong side. So why don't you unpack just your initial thoughts about Jalen Hurts in this game, and then we'll go from there.
So, as you said, Jalen Hurts in this game kind of looked like the quarterback that we expected him to be. And what I mean by that is a guy that can make the throw that's in front of him, that when he has time to set his feet and deliver can be accurate, but also a guy that is an extremely capable power runner and doesn't make bad decisions throwing the ball downfield into coverage. So, Jalen Hurts is super calm and collective. But he's also huge. He's strong. He's fast. He's basically everything you want in a quarterback to be a game manager. The question was, is he going to be more than that in Lincoln Riley's offense? And I think our initial thought was he probably isn't, but he doesn't need to be. Oklahoma's first offensive possession, Jalen Hurts goes 2 of 2 for 30 yards, 15 yards per attempt. Neither pass crosses the line of scrimmage. That's all that they're going to really require of him. Now, the next possession they throw down the field more, they end up missing a field goal. The possession sort of stalls out where they were trying some stuff. But for the rest of the game, for the most part, they're mixing in a lot of easy throws, straining the defense with an extremely capable run game, which is a part of their offense, and then asking Jalen Hurts to make throws downfield when they're in a position for Jalen Hurts to have the throw in front of him. As he gets more comfortable, I think maybe we'll see more from Jalen in terms of progressions and accurate throws into traffic. But for right now, what you're getting from Jalen is a guy that can very capably execute the offense that's in front of him, and his ability is as a runner open up everything else so that everything the offense is doing is easier. Everybody's a little more open. All the running lanes are a little wider because you're having to account for him as a runner as well as a passer.
If we're going to talk about one of the negatives we saw from Jalen, it's something that we have always been a little frustrated with him since his first game that we saw him against Southern Cal years ago. It's that he takes a beat to process some things, and it's not just in the passing game, be it like going through progressions, finding an open guy, pulling the trigger. The two things that we always said was it takes for him a while to process things, and because of that, he can't throw guys open a lot of times because he has to see it, process it, wind up and throw. But one of the things we saw in this game where it reared its ugly head, in my opinion, was that he didn't ever have to run a true zone read at Alabama. It was a lot more horizontal motion stuff under Lane Kiffin, and then really a pro-style offense with Daboll. I was a little concerned with how long it took for him to process the pull or the delivery in the zone read, handing the ball off to the running backs. Is that something that you saw too?
I did see it, and we talked about this a lot in 2016 and 2017 with Jalen Hurts. Again, as Daniel said, this is not our first rodeo discussing him, and we were at times fairly critical of Jalen Hurts when he was a freshman, even his sophomore year at Alabama. And one of the things we're always critical about was he struggled executing the zone read when they would try to do it. If they could run the zone read at a high level, Alabama would have been a lot more effective offensively with Jalen Hurts because it lets you have an unblocked player. You get essentially an extra blocker. But Jalen, for whatever reason, has always struggled in making the right read quickly in the zone read game. and it's generated a lot of problems. It created negative plays for Alabama. They made the wrong decision a lot. I remember there was one particular set of plays or set of possessions in 2016 where Damian Harris, the running back, was almost never getting the ball. It was like a 3-game stretch or a 3-game series where Jalen Hurts was keeping it almost every time they did the zone read, and Harris had a ridiculously high yard per carry average, but it wasn't really benefiting the team nearly as much as it should because Hurts was keeping the ball when it should have gone inside on the dive. And I think it's just kind of his natural instinct is to keep it and run it, which we saw a little bit as a scrambler. But it also sort of rears its head in other ways. One, there was a kind of a sloppy exchange, I think, that led to a turnover in the Houston game. And that also dates back to 2016 when Alabama tried to use Jalen Hurts as his zone read runner. Jalen Hurts fumbled the ball 11 times in 15 games in 2016 for Alabama. And he scaled that back later when they didn't do the zone read as much and when they really scaled him back as a runner and tried to expose him to less contact. But he had major fumbling issues as a freshman, which I thought was a little concerning to see fumbles in this game too. And I think all of that stems from the fact that he may be comfortable as a runner, but I don't know why it is. He's never been comfortable as a zone read guy.
One other negative, and then I want to get into some positives that I saw, and this might be a little bit of still getting his feet under him in this offense, but I saw a lot of early pocket bails on the first 3 drives where when they got beyond script and they got into actual play calling, reacting what the defense was doing, and he had to make reads, I saw a little bit of same old Jalen where it's not there. There's a little bit of pressure. Instead of stepping up in the pocket, he's bailing and rolling to his right and either throwing it away or getting a yard or 2 in the run. Did you see that as well?
I did. I mean, the first set of possessions there were a lot of times where Jalen was bailing out of the pocket. And I think it ended up being negated for a holding call but it was on the second series. Jalen Hurts had a clean pocket. And he did this a lot at Alabama, where he has a clean pocket, he's standing in, doesn't like what he sees, and he feels the pocket closing in or crunching from all sides, and he actually steps back and runs around the right tackle. So not stepping up and running through the pocket, but running backwards almost around the right tackle and outside the pocket. And the problem with that is sort of angles. You're doing, if you think about it in your head, and I'm not on video, so I can't show you this, but if you draw a little semicircle from the quarterback going backwards and then forwards to the line of scrimmage, and if you got a linebacker, he's just going to run a straight line to wherever the quarterback's going. So Jalen Hurts never gets the edge when he does that, and it's a bad habit of his, and it was a little disappointing to see that sort of bad habit from 2 or 3 years ago show up again in just the second possession, because that was the kind of thing that really, it kills plays. And if the way Jalen is as a passer and as a runner, you get 4 yards on first down and then you do that for a no gain, and now it's all of a sudden you're in 3rd and 6 and you've got to throw downfield. The best thing about Jalen is when he's clicking well, you're constantly getting positive yards in the run or the pass, taking easy plays, and you're never in 3rd and longs. And those bad decisions tend to put him in 3rd and longs more often.
So if we're looking at a positive, I think there's something that we flagged before this game, kind of in the offseason when the transfer was announced, in that Jalen gives you, for maybe a step back as a passer relative to Baker Mayfield or Kyler Murray, Jalen gives you something as a runner specifically against smaller Big 12 defenses or Big 12 defenses that play with a lot of spacing, 3-down linemen, that sort of thing, multiple DBs on the field, where he's such a powerful runner that he can straight just maul. And we saw a lot more inside runs where Kyler Murray would do an outside scramble and have a lot of success. We saw a lot more inside runs that were either designed quarterback runs, QB powers. We even saw a counter that was actually really well designed. But what it does for your offense is that you don't have to be hyper efficient passing the ball and hitting bombs all the time. You can move the ball because your quarterback can run in between the tackles for 7 yards whenever he needs it. And against these kind of defenses, he took whatever he wanted. passing the ball, running the ball. He took whatever he wanted. So that I thought was a pretty big positive. And it's an element that we didn't have in previous, iterations of this Lincoln Riley offense, which makes it that much more dynamic. He had 16 carries for 176 yards, 11 yards per, 3 touchdowns. So that's the running side of the ball. Tell me what you saw from him as a passer, if you're going to go from a positive perspective.
I think the biggest positive from him as a passer is he really did deliver when the plays were in front of him. When Jalen Hurts was a freshman and to a certain degree as a sophomore, he missed a lot of easy makeable throws, and he would be way late on his timing. And I think the biggest frustration, even for us as like neutral observers watching the games, you'd see the play was there, you'd see the opportunity was open, and he would just not pull the trigger and throw it a lot of times. Or when he did throw it, he'd throw it really late and take away the opportunity. And for the most part, Jalen, when a guy was open in this game, he pulled the trigger when he was supposed to. The ball was delivered with accuracy where the guy could catch the ball and run upfield. I do think there were a couple times, like one time I think Calcaterra, he put the ball too far in front of him and nearly got his head taken off, even though he caught the ball. But for the most part, Jalen executed the passing game well when the play was in front of him. Even if you're not going through 5 reads, he's still making the play. And again, it's easy for people to misunderstand. He's such a good athlete, and he is so dangerous with his ability to execute both parts of the offense that if he can just take the play that's in front of him, it's going to be extremely hard to stop Jalen in this offense. And let's be clear, right? You can criticize Jalen Hurts in this game and say he didn't, do a lot of stuff and didn't throw the ball downfield. He threw 3 incompletions in the game. 20 out of 23. 14.4 yards per, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. He ran 16 times for 116 yards, 11 yards per carry. I don't really care what it is that he did or did not do right from an NFL perspective in terms of being ticky-tacky with him as a quarterback. If his plays are averaging 12 or 13 yards per touch, no matter what he does, if he's making your running backs more effective because they're having to account for him as a runner and the running backs for a runner, and he's delivering the ball to all the players on your offense. And again, with guys like Rambo, Lamb, and now Hazelwood, it's clear they've got a lot of offensive weapons and a lot of guys that can take a ball and make something happen after they catch it. So the biggest thing from Jalen is he executed the offense that was in front of him well. He did it in multiple different ways and multiple roles. And it's a cliche, but I think at the end of the day, Jalen on this team and his abilities make everyone else on the Oklahoma offense better and make them operate more effectively because of his presence, his calmness, and his ability to run the ball.
The bomb in the first half to Lamb is something that I didn't see from him at Alabama, in that it required him to get his eyes up. The play broke down, at least the line of scrimmage broke down a little bit around him, and he did step up in the pocket, but I think he stepped up in the pocket with the intention to run. And he, if I remember correctly, he could have gotten an easy 7-8 yards, maybe more, because I do think the linebackers had vacated. He had to have his eyes up to throw that ball. And that's something that we just didn't see when he made a decision with his feet. Any movement, stepping up, rolling out, like you said, that was that. And we never, ever saw completed passes come out of that, much less something upfield that he had to see. So I really like that. My takeaway from this and all of this is that, kind of like you were saying, but to put a finer point on it, it doesn't matter if Jalen Hurts is going to be a great NFL player. It doesn't matter if Jalen Hurts is a Heisman Trophy candidate, although he's putting up Heisman Trophy stats. I think we've seen enough at this point to know that the system is so good that they're going to kill people on the offensive side of the ball. They're going to kill people regardless of who's quarterback, as long as they have someone who's competent. And Jalen Hurts is beyond competent. And he's not a 20 of 23, 14.4 per 11-yard and attempt, 170-yard rushing kind of guy. Like that's the system that's created a lot of that, and the fact that he's surrounded by a lot of offensive talent. Tell me I'm wrong on this. I'm not saying you can plug anybody in there, but I am saying that there's an uncanny ability for Lincoln Riley to maximize whatever tools that whatever quarterback he has in their toolbox.
I think it's absolutely true. And I mean, you and RJ Young had discussions, right, about what the style of offense would be and how much they'd change it. And I think at the end of the day, the answer to those questions is Lincoln Riley does what he does, but he also made adjustments with things like the power run with Jalen Hurts or running counters. I mean, they found ways to incorporate Hurts in the offense in such a way that watching that, you felt like it was the same offense as last year, even though there were some really, really different concepts they were executing. And I think that really just speaks to how well Lincoln Riley's scheme runs. It's multi-dimensional, meaning that they have so many layers to the plays that they're running, and there's a run component, and there's a quarterback run component, and there's a deep passing component, and there's a short passing component. Everything's got a counter. It's just incredibly difficult for defenses to deal with. And at the end of the day, our point with Hurts is basically it doesn't really matter how good he is if he's producing. And it's easy to say, oh, but Oklahoma has Sermon and Brooks and Rambo and Lamb and Hazelwood and Calcaterra. But you know what? They have those guys. And it's not a bad idea for Lincoln Riley to design an offense that gets the ball to him in a way that scores a lot of points. So I think at the end of the day, it's an extremely successful system. It's an extremely competent offense. Jalen Hurts is going to be extremely successful in this system, which is what we thought and had said preseason was likely to happen. The one curiosity, and I'll throw this back to you maybe, at the end of the day, how much do you think these numbers are going to translate to a scenario when they play Texas or if and when they make the playoff? Because I think that's kind of the final point, right? They're going to do this in most games this season. And we saw Alabama at 2016 with him as a true freshman set their single season all-time records for yardage with Jalen Hurts. And it completely disappeared when they placed elite competition. Do you think Lincoln Riley is going to find a way to maintain this production against top-level defenses? Or is this something that's going to be dominant all year until it comes to a screeching halt in a single game?
Yeah, and we can end on this because this was the question I was going to put to you to end on. I think so. I will say this. I think there's going to be some drop-off. This is Houston. Houston's defense sucks. But like we've said before, there are little details we can see, even against poor competition, that give us an indicator of how things are going to go against good competition. And in this game, what I saw was that the scheme is potent enough that they're going to be able to do this against Texas. I don't know that to the same degree, given that Texas, the changes in the style play a little bit into Texas' hands in terms of physicality and all of that. But on the flip side, Oklahoma hasn't had to bring this physicality to Texas before, and now they can. I think that we've seen enough at this point to know that Oklahoma is going to put 40 on somebody if they need to put 40 on somebody. The good thing is we saw the defense kind of stepping up where we haven't in the past. But for me, I don't. The key that we said, and the defense matters now in this discussion, that we said a couple of weeks ago is they can still take a step back offensively. And in this case, I think they kind of took a step sideways. They can take a step back offensively, but take a small step forward on defense and it make all the difference and balance it all out. So in my mind, after what I saw tonight, I know it's early. I'm really excited about what I've seen in the offense, and I think that there's enough there for them to challenge a Texas and make a run again in the playoffs. All right, y'all. That was pretty decent segment on Jalen Hurts. I think we love talking about him because we have so much experience talking about him and seeing him mature over his career. So we'll be talking about him throughout the season because Oklahoma's going to be in the thick of it, which means you need to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and let us know in the comments what we got wrong about Jalen Hurts or what we got right. Thanks so much, y'all. Have a great week, and God bless.